parents, and welcome to the 23-24 virtual parent meeting. Due to some issues we have with Skyward, we were not able to get all the parents in, and then that way we can't provide them the needed information to have the formal sit-down meeting. So my hope is that with this video and the information contained within it will be more convenient for you, allowing you to watch when you have free time. I provided a letter to take home with our players to give to you to let you know the situation, and hopefully you were able to send me your email and we can make contact that way, or eventually our Skyward situation will be fixed. I can be long-winded at times, but I'll try to do my best to keep the time frame between 15 and 20 minutes in length, providing all the information there is necessary for you to have. Now, before we get started, I will do my best to keep you updated each week on events via an email. There are always things that pop up that I might have forgotten about or didn't know to begin with, but I'll do my best to pass that on to you and your child. Okay, let's get started. We expect all players to treat their teammates, coaches, opponents, and officials with dignity and respect. We want all involved to know that as coaches, we do not tolerate drug use, alcohol, racism, or violence of any kind. As participants in the sport, we should all learn to accept defeat with dignity and learn to win with modesty. With things that are shown with the media today, this can be a hard thing for our young kids to do. We try to stress that what is popular isn't always right, nor what is right isn't always popular. Show class in whatever you do. Now, attendance to practices and games we consider to be mandatory. We ask that all players arrive to practices outside of the normal school day 10 to 15 minutes before start time so they can see the trainer if they need to, get up some shots, or do some extra stretching if they need it. For this reason alone, this is where some of our freshman issues come into play because we know they can't drive. We ask if they can to try to carpool, but if they can't make it, just let us know. We understand that situation. As freshmen coming in, they're not used to having to practice outside of the school day, like on holidays and whatnot. As high school teams, we do, and we do that so we can be able to compete at a high level with other teams who are doing it. For games, we will let the players and managers know when we need them to arrive and convey that to the parents in our weekly updates as well. This also goes for our injured players. Even though they can't participate due to their injury, we ask that they be present to see any changes that might occur to our overall game planning. We might put in a new play or something, and it'd be good for them to see that, so when they come back, they aren't stepping into something and being confused. If a player is sick, however, we ask them to stay home if that illness could be spread to others. We don't want to infect the entire team or coaching staff. Now, back to the transportation. If it is an issue or a player can't make it to practice or game event, we ask that the players, not the parents, contact the coaching staff via email or Google Classroom. Sometimes parents, it might be easier for you to contact us, especially if your child is sick and you're just letting them sleep. Go ahead and shoot us that email so we can make sure we take proper attendance and we know where they're at. We do want the players to learn individual responsibility. That's why we want them to contact us. But we understand the situation. A player earns their playing time in practice. No player is entitled to playing time. It's got to be earned, and the player's practice performance must be efficient in order to get it. If a player has a question centered on how they might improve, that player should talk directly to their coach at their level. If you're a freshman, you talk to Coach Adams. If you're JV, you talk to Coach Davis. If you're varsity, you talk to either myself, Coach Strite, or my lead assistant, Coach Evans. If a player misses practice for any reason, they are expected to make up that missed practice. It's kind of like homework at school. If they're gone, we expect them to make it up. If a player contacts us and lets us know prior to that absence they're going to be excused, and that means the condition they do probably isn't going to be as major. Now, if a player misses and doesn't contact us, then we consider it unexcused, and that player could be subjected to extra conditioning. As a coaching staff, we'll discuss the situation with all the parties involved before a decision is made on how to handle that situation. There are situations that will come up we never expect, but we address them as we see fit, and we try to get the player, all coaches, and if we have to, sometimes the administration involved to make those decisions. So please bear with us. Nobody is perfect. All players are expected to carry good grades. We expect them to work just as hard in the classroom as they do on the court. We do grade checks each week, and those players with D's and F's will do some extra conditioning. All players are provided practice tops and bottoms as well, and we expect these to be taken care of with proper washing. Now, with the practice top, I do ask if you would please hang dry, but in situations it may not happen, and that's because you just don't have time to do that. So we expect the kids to have them in practice, wear them. If they forget or lose their practice gears, they're subject to extra conditioning, especially if they lose it and we don't rediscover it somewhere, they could have to reimburse us for that loss. They have a team bag as well in which to keep their practice and game items in. As for game day gear, all players are provided a travel jacket when possible. Sometimes we run into size issues and have to order. Sometimes those orders can take a while, but we'll do our best to try to get the team all in the same jacket. A shooting shirt is also provided to them with their numbers involved, and a complete jersey. All jerseys, though, will be collected after games, home and away, and will be washed by the coaching staff. We were able to purchase new Under Armour jerseys for the team and hope to have them last for at least 4 years. That's when the next rotation is for new jerseys. Players are expected to leave their game jerseys with the coaching staff. Failure to do so will result in extra conditioning. So if we're on a home game or away game, especially away game, if they're going to ride home with you, we need to make sure we have that uniform before they leave. During the season, we ask that our players and managers dress appropriately for game days. On home games, we ask the players to look nice. Try to stay away from ripped clothing items and raggedy shoes. Now, I know some of those might be in fashion, but we are trying to present a clean image. So if we can, no rips, please, and no raggedy shoes. Now, we're not asking for slack, shirt, and tie. Some kids like to wear that. We just want them to look nice. For away games, we ask that they wear their travel jacket, nice jeans or nice black sweatpants, and a nice shirt. Again, no holes. We want them to look nice. And I always tell kids if they have to, run down to Goodwill or whatever. You can find some nice clothes in there. I bought many there myself, and usually fairly cheap. Christmas is coming up. Also some nice gift items to get for your child. All gear and equipment provided to the players is not for their own personal everyday use. We have told the players to only wear it during game days, the exception being the travel bag, that they carry their gear for practices and games. The jerseys will be handed out usually the day before each game or the night of the game, especially if it's a home game. And finally, for players, we ask that after games, win or lose, all players shake hands with the opponent and then go directly to the locker room for a brief team discussion with the coaching staff. We've had issues with this before, waiting for kids to come in. Coaches can address some issues they saw or congratulate the players on some things they did well when they're out visiting with family and friends. We want them to come into the locker room, sit, do not get undressed, do not change, listen to the coaches. We will be brief, and then we will dismiss them. Players should not begin to undress and change till after that brief meeting. After the meeting, players, of course, can re-enter the court, the gymnasium that is, and meet with family and friends. Please help us in this manner. We're trying to set a precedent here that has been lost over the last couple years. On away games, all players must ride the bus to the game. There's no exception. This is a Acacia rule, not a Bonner Springs High School rule. Afterwards, if you wish to take them home with you instead, we will have a manager with a sign-out list for you to do so. Please find Natalie Stowaway, our only girl varsity manager, and you can sign your son out. If you're having someone else take your son home, that must be arranged with Mr. Hitchcock in the activity director's office. You must call and notify him about the arrangement that you might have with another adult. Now, this could be a grandparent picking them up, aunt, uncle, or a close friend because you're out of town and you need them to bring them home. Just make sure they contact and let Mr. Hitchcock knows. Once he knows, he'll pass that information on to us. And this must be done 24 hours prior to the game. So make sure if this is going to happen, if it's a situation that just occurred and it's an emergency, contact him anyway, and then he will let us know. As parents, we ask that you treat players, coaches, opponents, officials, and administration with dignity and respect. During games, you may not always like the decisions we make as coaches. You may not like the calls by the officials. Sometimes you may not like what a teammate does. Remember, we're there to be supportive. We're trying to win and build a positive culture. We ask that during games you cheer on your son, other team members, and coaches in a positive manner. Be supportive and encouraging. Mr. Hitchcock, our athletics director, wanted me to make sure I address this due to some concerns at the middle school level. In games and especially tournaments, we may suit up players we believe that could give us the best advantage of winning. That is due in part maybe because there was an injury, maybe there was a kid that got sick, and we're replacing that player with another player. But this by no means guarantees all players will be getting into the game and getting court time. At the varsity level, we're trying to win games, and as coaches, we'll do what is best for the team at that moment. In JV and freshman games, we try to play all players suited up, but playing time may not be equal to all. We're trying to build a winning culture as well as develop players for the future. If there are any issues or concerns that you might have during games or during practices, but especially games, we ask that you wait 24 hours before contacting a coach when that issue or concern arises. After a win, coaches want to not only celebrate with the players, but be able to dissect the game and look at what maybe they could have done different as well. After a loss, emotions can be high in all parties involved, and things can be said or taken out of context. It's always better to wait after a loss so that whatever the conversation is will be positive and profitable for all. We want the players to be advocates for themselves first. We do have an appropriate chain of communication listed within the contract for players and parents to follow, so please look over that a little bit more in depth. We do have a few team dinners planned, and we hope that as parents and players all can be involved and help out. My wife, with the help of Mrs. Hill in the athletics office, will share out a sign-up genius for each event, usually a week in advance. As coaches, we'll do our best to put each player in a position to help the team be successful. We'll push and challenge each player to be a best person, student, and athlete they can be. We'll maintain a role of coaching as professional, be honest with our players, and hold each other accountable for their actions and performance. We'll also be positive role models in personal management, appearance, ethics, and behavior. The reason we do this, primarily, a lot of kids sometimes, because they're around us coaches 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes we can be an avenue for them, not necessarily a parent figure, but an avenue for them that they feel trust and feel like they can share information with us. And so we want to know, or we want them to know, we do care about them, and we want them to care about themselves and others, and we hope that we can train them or teach them better ways to react in situations. With that, I want to thank you for your time and patience. As a coaching staff and team, we aren't perfect, nor will we be. We must all work together for our season to be successful. I can't wait for those games to begin and meet the parents of the young men that we're teaching. I thank you in advance for putting them in our care, and as I said, we will do our best to keep you informed of any situation that comes up, especially calendar changes, times, dates, or game locations. Sometimes like I said in the beginning, sometimes they happen without me knowing it or not recognizing it, but like I said, we'll do our best to keep you informed. I hope to see you in the gym this school season. We go all the way until March, so it is a long season. We hope that you can bring those happy faces, keep our kids going, and we can have a very, very good year. So thanks again for your time, and go Braves.